All right, call to order the Arvada City Council meeting for February 13th, 2023. And if I could ask a council member to lead us in a moment of silent reflection in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Smith.
Yes, please join me in a moment of silent reflection. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Rush, please do the roll call.
Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer,
Here.
Councilmember Marriott,
Here.
Councilmember Mormon,
Here.
Councilmember Simpson, Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mayor Williams and Councilmember Simpson from tonight's meeting.
Motions to excuse Mayor Williams and Councilmember Simpson. All votes are cast, and that passes 5-0 with the mayor and Ms. Simpson being excused. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda are public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items that you have to bring to us. We always listen carefully to the things that you have to say, but this isn't a time where we respond back to you. But if there is something that needs to have follow-up, we'll ask the team to follow up with you on those issues. So I have several here that have signed up. The first one, and I apologize up front if I missay your names, Vinny LaSalvia.
Greetings, City Council. My name is Vinny LaSalvia. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself as an Arvada resident. I'll be succinct here as someone who spends a lot of my free time recreating in the outdoors, skiing, mountain biking, gardening, camping, etc. I'd like to urge the City Council to support and fund a modernized Sustain Arvada plan, as well as implement a climate action plan specific to Arvada. While activities like skiing and mountain biking tend to take place in the high country and foothills, I'd like to remind you of the cliche that what you do affects your neighbor, especially when it comes to climate action. With the proper funding and resources, the City of Arvada can lead the way for climate action and resiliency, while also promoting economic growth and a livable future for Arvada residents that our neighboring communities would be jealous of. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Susan Doak.
Good evening. My name is Susan Doak, and I've been a resident of Arvada for 35 years. I'm here today to thank you for holding a study session on the topic of homelessness in Arvada. My comments tonight reflect my experiences working in Old Town and interacting with people experiencing homelessness through both my work and my volunteering. Homelessness is far more complex than many people realize. I, too, wish that I didn't have to see people panhandling at street corners or sleeping in the square. But it is a reality across our country. Homelessness has many causes, but there is one very effective solution. It is called housing. The lack of affordable housing and wages not keeping up with the cost of basics such as food and heat is a direct cause of homelessness. Homelessness is not an Arvada problem, it is a societal problem. It needs to be addressed in our city with responses that have been proven to work. There is an agency in our city that has had great success getting people housed. It is Mission Arvada of the Rising Church. They are both a day shelter and a homelessness navigation center. In the past 3 years, 145 people have received housing thanks to their help. They are doing good work, and I urge City Council to encourage city staff to work with Mission Arvada. Since your study session, the Arvada Library has been closed for meth cleanup. I'm sure you've heard from citizens who believe this is the fault of Mission Arvada, but this is simply not true. Meth is being smoked in public restrooms across our country. The libraries in Boulder, Inglewood, and Littleton don't have day shelters near them, and they were also closed for meth. Denver Public Library hasn't closed any branches because they have chosen not to test for meth. If they did, they would find it. I am a supporter of small business. I shop and dine in Old Town. I, too, think the community would be better served if Mission Arvada was located somewhere outside of Old Town. Shutting them down is not the answer. Helping them relocate to another space is. They and their clients deserve a larger, more modern space to offer the many valuable services provided by both the day shelter and the navigation center. But people experiencing homelessness will continue to come into Old Town because of the transit hub, the library, and the square. I can tell you that people come to the library not knowing about Mission Arvada. Having an actual service provider to refer them to is so much better than just handing them a granola bar and saying good luck. Please continue to provide strong leadership in this area that is facts-based and supported by evidence. Let's work together as a community to make Arvada a place we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Iris Sela Horowitz.
Greetings, City Council. I'm Iris Horowitz, a resident of District 3, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the all-volunteer City Council-appointed Arvada Sustainability Advisory Committee. We are here to ask you to prioritize sustainability in the city and fund Sustain Arvada in 2023. Sustain Arvada is a program and plan created in 2012 that currently has no funding. Funding this program will provide the resources needed to achieve already established sustainability goals that tie directly into economic viability goals, develop a comprehensive, up-to-date, data-driven sustainability plan with benchmarks and measurable goals that will contribute to a healthier and more sustainable and more resilient community, and support the new City of Arvada Sustainability Coordinator. The goals we seek to achieve are not siloed. In fact, they work to support already established goals found in the City Council Strategic Plan for 2020 to 2025. There are many sustainability-oriented objectives outlined in the plan, including municipal fleet electrification, a transportation plan that implements emerging technology, a plan that helps the city achieve a sustainable, attractive, and livable community for current and future generations, and environmental education and resource conservation services for residents so that they can carefully use and preserve resources and save money. In addition, there are several goals stated for 2023 regarding working with ASAC to complete the update for a Sustain Arvada plan. Our committee is small and mighty and passionate, but we cannot ourselves do all the research and analysis needed to create a plan that will support the city and its residents in this new chapter of growth and change. We are thrilled that the city has selected a new sustainability coordinator to lead this initiative and elevate sustainability goals in every area the city serves. Let's set her up for success. Let's provide the resources needed to add the necessary benchmarks, updates, and teeth to make our sustainability plans something our community can truly benefit from and be proud of. Let's walk our talk and add the funding needed to achieve these city plan aligned goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Darlong Chong. And I don't know if I said that right completely. I've heard you say it several times, so I apologize.
It's all right. It's Darlon Chang.
Chang, sorry.
Good evening, City Council. I'm speaking as an Arvada resident at 6876 Juniper Court in the Geos neighborhood and as a director of a startup company for building and renovating homes to be sustainable. I'm asking you to provide funding for updating the Sustain Arvada plan so that Arvada neighborhoods and businesses benefit from resources made available through federal and state legislation in order to do our part to meet the sustainability goals of the city and county. To give concrete examples from my own life, the compost service provider for my neighborhood is considering canceling our service. And I believe that this is due in large part to a lack of an updated Sustain Arvada plan to support composting so that providers could make as much profit in Arvada as in other cities. Another example is that my neighborhood was fortunate enough to be spared from mandatory evacuation orders for the Marshall Fire about a year ago, but I believe it was due more to how the winds were blowing rather than proactive plans to prevent or mitigate such a disaster. My friend and his family were not so fortunate, as they lost their home and most of their possessions to the fire. My family welcomed them to stay with us until they could get back on their feet, and they were impressed that our home was kept warm in the winter with a geothermal heat pump powered by electricity from rooftop solar photovoltaic panels. They were also impressed that our home was so energy efficient that even without considering rooftop solar electricity credits, our energy bills would be about a quarter of a typical American home. My friend and his family wanted their home to be rebuilt to be as energy efficient and sustainable as my home. And thanks to the sustainability plan of their city, their insurance company was required to pay for those upgrades in order to meet city code. My final example is that I was at the state capitol last Friday to talk with state legislators about a study bill transitioning oil and gas workers like my former colleagues to working on energy efficiency and renewable energy like geothermal heating and cooling for buildings. But I believe that communities that have many of their jobs and property taxes in oil and gas would struggle to transition without nearby markets for new jobs in building and renovating homes. An updated Sustain Arvada plan would provide much-needed resources and certainty for small businesses like mine to create new jobs. I urge you to consider my examples and those of many other residents of how funding for a new Sustain Arvada plan would benefit both residents and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Joyce Richardson.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am here also to echo my desire that the Sustainability Committee be funded. I really appreciate that we have a sustainability coordinator now, and I think the logical next step is to give them a budget to work with. I'm really worried about climate change, and I hope that the Sustainability Committee or Sustain Arvada can help with that. So I think I would just urge you to fund their work. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And then, do we have a person to sign up for this?
Yeah, sorry, we came a little late.
That's fine. If you'll just give that to the city clerk there and then come on up to the podium.
So hi, council members. I'd like to bring up the issue of the Lake Arbor golf course this evening. I'm one of the residents in Lake Arbor, and I've come here because of a growing concern that we're having with the number of golf balls and the velocity in which these are hitting our residencies, our yards, and the number of near misses of our persons or of our family members. In the last 4 years that we've lived in the neighborhood, we've had over 1,000 golf balls in my property alone. There's a upside-down wheelbarrow of them, but they come in very fast on hole number 5 there. And my pregnant wife has been nearly hit in our backyard in our covered patio within a couple inches. I've nearly been hit walking down Otis Drive on the sidewalk. Going to Discovery Trail or walking to downtown Westminster there, and the side of our house is covered in golf balls, golf ball holes as well. These come in very quick. It's an increasing safety concern, and I'm really deeply concerned that myself, one of my family members, or one of my neighbors is going to get hit. And as I've seen in the research that I provided, these golf ball impacts can either cause like a serious injury or be fatal for someone that's a small child or an elderly resident. And I don't want to see that happen. I think there are some really cost-effective ideas that we can come up with and be creative to help solve this problem, so we have a great golf course, a great place for people to play, but also it's safe for the neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. And is your name Brian?
It's Nick, gentlemen.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got these right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. For
And
your
I've
input.
I also provided a letter from Gary Osborne at 8459. He could not be in attendance tonight, but asked me to pass it on to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And obviously tonight we're having a workshop on this, so thank you for your comments. Next, Brian Howell.
Thanks for hearing this, Council. I live right next to Mr. Gentleman and Mr. Osborne as well. And just like to reiterate that is our situation as well. We probably average about 15 golf balls in our yard every week. Now, we know that buying a house on the golf course, that's going to happen. We're not trying to be unreasonable at all. But we've had a lot of times when we've been sitting out, eating on our deck and stuff like that, golf balls whizzing by our heads, right by my son and daughter and stuff like that. And we've also had them not only in the amount and the velocity, but even like over our house in our front yard that faces away from the golf course. I mean, we've had our vehicles hit. You've had your windshield shattered by that, and I've had my vehicle hit by that too. So it just feels like something that's a little excessive. You know what I mean? Not your regular kind of what you'd expect kind of thing. But wow, it's a lot, very fast, and very many per week. And we're just thinking there's got to be some way we could make some adjustments. We love the golf course. We don't want it to go away. We think it's a great resource for Arvada, and we love having it. We love living on it. But we just think that maybe adjusting some holes or some directions of holes and things like that could make the place a safer place to be while preserving the course itself and the value there that we have. So that's just kind of what we would like to say. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Grace Murray.
Thank you in advance for hearing my concerns. I live right next door to Nick, and I've been there for just about 50 years. And I've had multiple problems with multiple windows broken. Recently, 2 months ago, I had my bedroom window broken, and that was about the third time in about 6 months. And that cost almost $300 to repair, and the similar costs in the past. And as you can figure, after being there 50 years, and I've had multiple windows broken. In the beginning, when we moved there, it was owned by a private owner. He took full responsibility for the windows broken while he was in charge and the owner. And then once it was turned over to the city, then, it was all holds barred. Anyway, I just wanted to make you aware that I am afraid of repairmen coming into my yard because I tell them they need a hard hat in case a ball comes swimming right into my yard. And you can imagine how many golf balls I have accumulated in 50 years. Many, many, many. And so my son, when we first moved there, was 2 years old and got hit in his forehead and in our yard. So that's why I warn everyone who's on my patio, keep your head under the umbrella. Even that might not help. But everybody needs a hard hat in my yard and on my patio. And it's really difficult to continue having windows broken, and especially the last one in my bedroom, which was right behind my bed. And I didn't even know it was broken until the curtains were open, because, you keep them closed in the dark or in the cold weather. And oh my God, there's another window broken. Another time, the same window in the same spot every time. So I'm hoping that, and then through the years, we had our fence totally lined with trees. And of course, year by year, they died from 50 years ago, but they didn't make a bit of difference, not one bit. So I'm hoping that something can be, because I'm right on the golf course, around the 50 location, and I'm just hoping that something can be done, at least in the near future. And I thank you for hearing me again.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate your comments. And like I said, tonight, we've got a great workshop from our team on the golf course and things that they're looking at. So it's timely with your feedback, so we appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Anyone else in chambers that would like to speak during public comment before I close the public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion, and I guess I better check, make sure there's nobody online. Okay, great, thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent agenda. The first item on the consent agenda is R23-017, a resolution authorizing amendment number 3 to the agreement by and between the City of Arvada and PCL Construction, Inc., establishing a contractor's guarantee maximum price 3 for the construction management general contract agreement for pre-construction services for the rehabilitation and modification of the filter and solids handling system at the Ralston Water Treatment Plant in an amount not to exceed $3,519,000. Next, Resolution R23-018, a resolution authorizing amendment number 2 to the agreement between the City of Arvada and Moltz Construction, Inc., awarding contractor Phase 2 and establishing contractor's guaranteed maximum price for Phase 2 of the construction management general contractor agreement for pre-construction services for the Alkire Lift Station improvements in an amount not to exceed $839,000. Next, R23-019, a resolution authorizing a license agreement by and between the City of Arvada and the Church Ditch Water Authority pertaining to construction and maintenance of improvements along West 80th Avenue. And the final consent item is R23-020, a resolution authorizing an agreement between the City of Arvada and Frontier Environmental Services, LLC, for goods and services related to boring conduit and fiber pulling in an amount not to exceed $500,000. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that resolutions, consent agenda items R23-017, R23-018, R23-019, and R23-020 all be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes 5-0 with Mayor Williams and Councilmember Simpson being absent. Thank you very much. Next, we'll consider R23-021, a resolution revising and adopting the bylaws for the Arvada Human Services Advisory Committee. Ms. Gillis.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, the city established the Human Services Advisory Committee in 1998 for the purpose of advising City Council on the allocation of funding from the Human Services Funding Pool, as well as the funding for public services from the Community Development Block Grant. The Human Services Advisory Committee reviews applications from area nonprofits for the Human Services Funding Pool, then provides recommendations to City Council for the allocation of funding. This agenda item is consideration of a resolution that details the revisions and adoption of bylaws for the Human Services Advisory Committee. The Arvada team recommends City Council approve R23-021.
Thank you very much. Open it up for questions or discussion from council. Ms. Smith?
Happy to make the motion.
I see no other questions. Make your motion.
I move that R23-021, a resolution revising and adopting bylaws for the Arvada Human Services Advisory Committee, be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes 5-0 with Mayor Williams and Councilmember Simpson being absent. Thank you very much. We don't have any other first readings. So we'll move on to our workshop section of our meeting tonight, which first on the agenda is our community survey. So Ms. Gillis, I'll turn it over to you for kicking that off.
And I'll turn it over to Community Economic Development Director Ryan Stuchelski.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I am excited to talk about the community survey tonight. It really represents the voice of the customer, the voice of our citizens, and so it's going to be exciting to kind of hear what they have to say. Just to give you a little bit of background, the city of Arvada has been doing biannual community surveys from 1997, and over the past 2 decades or so in doing those, we've received different bits of information. The last time we did that ahead of the pandemic was in 2019. We weren't able because we were busy with other things during 2021, but in 2022 we were able to reach out and do the community survey. Some of the things that's neat about the community survey that was done in 2022 is that the survey went to all residents. This is the first time that the survey did that. We did that through the Arvada report and then other social media posts, and then our research firm also did mailings to the community as well. So we really got a broad response from everybody in the community, and that was available regardless of language or other abilities. There was a phone number that they could call, or it was done in various languages as well. So it was a very inclusive survey. The survey is, and Mr. Popolski will talk about this, but is statistically significant, meaning it's accurate to the voice. And so in this process, we worked with Probalski, research, and Adam Probalski is here from out of town in order to kind of go over the results with us. But this information is used not only with your upcoming City Council strategic results, or not result, excuse me, City Council strategic retreat, but the leadership team and the rest of the city all use it as well to make sure that we're aligning our work plan and other services that we're providing along with what we're hearing from the community. So with that, Mr. Popolski is here to go through his slide presentations, and then he will be here to answer questions, and I will be here to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, members of the City Council. Thank you for having me present today. We've got I've got a lot of data, and so I'm going to try to move through it quickly and then take questions. This is about 46 slides. As you may know, there's a 180 slide deck presentation that has a lot of data behind it, and then there's a report that I think probably has about 1,000 pages that has open-ended responses and all that other kind of information. So a lot more behind this, but let me get started. As Ryan explained, this was a very inclusive process, not only offered in English and Spanish, but making sure we met essentially your residents where they wanted to communicate, whether on the telephone or online, reached out in very numerous methods to make sure that everyone had the chance to participate if they wanted to. And this is the typical form that we do this for other communities throughout the country. In Colorado, of course, we work for Town of Avon, City of Edgewater, Department of Housing, the State Department of Housing. So we do a lot of work in the state. I'll move quickly, and please stop me or ask questions.
Can I ask a question about methodology?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So I'm very intrigued by this because we did make a switch from how we've done this in the past.
Yes.
And in the past, as I understand, we did random sampling. So the surveyor was calling people, contacting them randomly to get them to respond. And in this case, it's truly up on our residents to choose to participate. Is that correct?
No. So we this is a mixed methodology. The goal was we did directly reach out to residents through email, through text message, and then targeted residents through social media. And then, of course, there was an opportunity, seeing in our Arvada report or other places. Our job in the end was to match the demographics and match the the makeup of this community, and that's what we achieved. So even though people were able to participate in all those different methods, we definitely still matched the makeup of your community. So kind of a unique way of doing it, but still gets you the result of a statistically valid product.
No, I understand that, and I'm just curious a little bit more on how do you address the bias of individuals choosing to participate, right? Because we did have that where individuals were counted in the survey and they actively said, I want to participate in this survey.
And it's not that much different than, so the phone call is one thing, but us, we do a whole lot more of this than we do this. If you look at yourself, you're probably in the 100 to 1 factor of times you're online. So we essentially met people where they're most comfortable. So if you can look at the touch point of a telephone call is very similar to the touch point of an email, to the touch point of a text message, to the touch point of an ad soliciting that particular individual, or a piece of mail also that we solicited that particular household. So very similar, just looks different.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. This slide is an open-ended question, and I'm going to move quickly here. An opportunity for people to talk to us about what's most important to them in their community and what's top of mind. You'll see other things really rise up in the presentation, but public safety and crime, number one, and then homelessness. The one thing I'll say here is there's nothing that rises to the 40, 50, 60% level, which is where we start to give different types of advice. This is, you have a group of people who have concerns, but nothing overarching. 71% say they rate overall quality of life as good, 71%. We're always going to throw out this roundup, so here's 71%. Here's what I'm going to say here. This is not an academic exercise, right? We're not looking to get 95%, and you didn't get a C with 71. This is America. We don't agree on anything. If you have 50% plus one agreeing on something, hooray. 71 is really, really good when it comes to the context of public policy and local government. Next, 71% say that it's a good place to live compared to other cities and towns. Great. And we also don't put a value judgment on fair. Fair it's fine. It's the way it's supposed to be. So you add those two numbers together, it's pretty strong. You'll see that throughout the survey. We ask about issues that are going on in town in a list, and we ask them to tell us what are personally important to them. And here they tell us working in some way to address the homeless issue. And then from there, roads and streets and crime in general and things like that. So you see other things rise up to the top here. Yes, sir.
Go ahead and finish your statement. I have a question.
Other things rise up to the top, but they were here clearly able to identify more than one issue. And what we love about this is you see the bulk of things rising to the top, and then it cascades down. So people can really express themselves on multiple concerns.
So the question I have is that first slide you showed, which was the open-ended question, put down anything you want that you think is a concern. Was this data here generated off prompted questions like rank these in order, or check mark all of these that you think are important?
Yes. First one was open-ended option. They just told us things, and you can see the actual words they chose or words they said or wrote. In this case, it was a list that they chose from.
Okay. And so how do you square those, if we interpret that data, what do we make of that data? Because there's some things on both lists that fell lower and higher than fell up and down based on that.
So if we, right here, and I suspect people in the audience, are quite engaged in this community and quite engaged in what's happening around them. But outside of this building, we're going to school, going to church, trying to save enough money to go to dinner once a week. You'll see a lot of unsure as we go through this survey. They are not, I'm not saying your community is not connected, they're just not engaged in thinking about public policy issues like this. So that's where the disconnect comes. The first thing I say to you is, what's the most important issue facing your community? It's whatever happened to you that day in that moment, and that's okay. I want to get that visceral concern. Here I present you with very specific things, issues in town, and here you're going to choose the things that you want to be prioritized.
Okay, thank you.
So next, here are the services provided by the city, and you see jumped up at the top there are streets and roads, and then cleaning reliable drinking water, and things like trails and open space, which you'll see have really high marks. But so differentiating from services and issues that perhaps they might be facing. But again, you've got a whole group of people a whole group of issues that are over 50% that could be addressed. And then we ask about services, again, in this case, specifically that they're satisfied with, and we see their satisfaction levels maintaining parks and clean and reliable drinking water and things like that. So 82% of residents expect that their city council should not be controlled by special interests. I don't love this headline because I'm sure you're not. But these are kind of an options of things that people are able to choose from. And you can see it's kind of what they expect from you. But they kind of expect all these things from you is what's really kind of amazing. And so you get to then prioritize how you address these things. Affordability of utility bills is something that people express as having an issue with in their household, right now. I'll point out again, this is not something that is experienced by 40, 50, 60% of people, but there is a group of people who express this, and you can see that, almost a plurality, almost a majority, 47%, say really nothing. So most of your constituents are doing fine. During COVID, what were they experiencing? Any of these different things? The big chunk of folks say none of these things, but there is a high, issue there at 37% saying that there were general mental health issues. Moving quickly through agree or disagree, Arvada is responsive to the priorities of residents. 54% say they agree. You have 32% that say they disagree. And you also have that, as I said, 14% that say they're unsure. They just don't have context. It's not really what they're thinking about. And that's okay. You don't have to feel bad about that. It's you got a majority that say they support and they agree with you.
How do we compare to our neighboring cities on things like this?
Really well, actually. Working with staff, which, by the way, I didn't say, was really a pleasure. They kind of pushed us to get some comparison data, which we have, which I'm sure they'll share with you. But if you look at the chart, just on some basic metrics, you compare really well, both in Colorado and your surrounding communities and nationwide as well. So responsive, and then satisfied with the service provided by the city overall. So here you're at 69%, really strong numbers. Again, we're never dismissive of anyone, specifically the 25% say they're unsatisfied, but you have a really strong, what we look to is a much greater than 2-to-1 differential between satisfied and unsatisfied. Looking at feeling like they get their money's worth for their tax dollars, and there's not always a direct understanding of where my tax dollars go and who gets them and how that works, so at least you're in the positive here, and that's pretty strong. Am I willing to pay more to improve or increase service levels? Right now, they say no. But obviously, if you put a finer point on it, these numbers might be different. We do a lot of work on tax issues, and so if you start explaining what you're going to accomplish, some of these numbers could flip. I'm going to go to providing police services, two-thirds, more than two-thirds saying they're satisfied. Preparing for emergencies, the majority says they're satisfied. Again, 35% don't know whether you're preparing for emergencies or not, and that's, because they're just not informed about it, and it's not necessarily anything you're doing wrong, they're just not they're not really in tune to that. Maintaining parks and open space and trails, they love it. They're satisfied, 86%. You're doing a great job. There's a theme through here you'll see on parks and open space and trails, envious. So satisfied or unsatisfied with economic development and job creation. So yes, a plurality says they're satisfied at 41%. Again, big group of people just don't know. They don't have context for it. Satisfied with how the city manages growth and development, not as much. A slim majority unsatisfied, and you all probably have a pretty good clear sense of where that comes from. So cities and festivals and community events, they love them, 71%. Enforcing zoning and building codes, satisfied to the tune of 36%, and a similar number kind of emerging there unsatisfied. But again, a big group of people, more than a third, unsure. They just don't know about it. 46% are satisfied with how the city uses technology to connect and provide services. And again, a big group of people just don't know. And here's what's kind of cool. If we flash forward 2 years and you do another survey with us or whoever, you get to identify which one of these things that you want to prioritize and increase the information flow on, and hopefully see some of those unsure numbers come down if that's important to you. How important is it to you that the city promotes affordable housing? Very, very important, 69%, pretty strong there. Again, more than 2-to-1 differential. 70% say it's important for the city to promote sustainability and climate action. So you've got a big group of your constituents that think that's important. And then you've got 68% that say it's important to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is, again, more than 2-to-1. So you've got this theme that you've got, if these are priorities as policy priorities, you're in a strong place and you're fulfilling their goals.
Let me ask a question real quick. Those last 3 questions all refer to promote.
Yes.
So promote this, promote that. How were those questions actually asked? Were they asked exactly that how important is it that the city promote this? And what do we have any, what would that imply? What does promote this imply?
So the text on the page is exactly the way it was asked. The exact way residents saw it. I mean, from an outreach perspective, I think it's talking about the policies you have, and it's promoting the fact that you have an internal policy. And as you see, there's some other questions we have that talk about being welcoming environment, things like that. I think you could certainly ask it in the, do you want more affordable housing or do you want more of these things? And you'd probably see numbers slightly different, but essentially it's, do you want this to be front and center, I guess.
Thank you.
And then important to build new parks and outdoor amenity spaces, 72% say yes. And you can kind of see there's a little theme here, right? There's about 25% that are just kind of generally either against things or naysayers or unhappy, and we don't want to dismiss them, but it's a finite group that hopefully perhaps as we work with staff and look at the cross-tabulated results, see how we can address some of those concerns directly with those constituencies. Here you'll see we put good and fair together to get 69% say the city's efforts to solicit public input is good or fair. Again, no value judgment on fair, it's just kind of the way it's supposed to be. Only 21% say poor. 62% say the city's efforts for inclusion and of people with all abilities and cultures and ages, that you're doing a good job at that, or a fair job. So strong numbers. How would you rate the city on being welcoming and supportive of demonstrating caring for people throughout through its services? 67%, 2/3 say you're doing a good or fair job at that. And then 65% say that you're doing a good or fair job at delivering services to residents in a fair and equitable way. So really, these numbers kind of thematically go along with each other, strong numbers. 77% of residents rate the city's distribution of information about programs as good or fair. So you're doing a good job of getting that message out. Only 7% say they're unsure. So that really shows that the word is out, and only 16% say they're unhappy. 95% would rate the quality of and access to parks and open space and trails as good or fair in Arvada. That is incredible. That's the puppies and kittens territory that I think everybody wants to see. So that's really, really strong. It's hard to we're not going to see much bigger numbers in future surveys, just by the way. 66% say you're doing a good job at athletic fields and the golf course. And then 2/3 again saying the customer service they receive when they interact with city government is good. So 2/3 strong. Only 11% say that's poor. And then overall quality of trash recycling, 63%, 64% positive necessarily for neighborhood and strong neighborhoods and communities, building those places, 64%. And then 87% say maintenance of parks and trails. Again, that theme that you're doing something pretty incredible there, people are really supportive of. So is it a pedestrian-friendly city? The majority says yes, but there is a group that says no, and that's a possible focus point. In the last 12 months, have you contacted the city? Less than a majority say yes, so a majority say no, they haven't contacted the city. But among the people who said they did contact the city, 74% said they had a good interaction, and another 15% said it was fair, it was good, it was fine. And this is the demographics of the people we talk to. This is your age groups and gender and ethnicity. And how long people have lived in town. I know that's a ton of information, and I'm happy to answer questions. And, of course, as I said, there's a lot of data behind, and we're on Team Arvada for the duration, so you have questions with staff, you want to ask them for it, they'll come to us, and we'll get you whatever specialized data you're looking for.
Thank you. Mr. Marriott.
So I have a question about the demographic slide, if you want to go back one slide or two, either way.
Yeah.
To me, as a layperson who knows nothing about surveying for results here, it looks to me like this is ideally what you'd be looking for if you're trying to sample a community, the distribution between male and female and age groups and household income and ethnicity. Like, is this exactly what you're aiming for, or would you have liked to see something different there?
No, this is exactly what we're aiming for. So it's our job to make it representative, and so it's our job to call and email and text and knock on doors if we have to, in the end, to get the right mix of age and gender and all the other ethnicity within town.
And these were the actual results you got. These weren't adjusted.
Yeah, so we didn't wait any results. We just pursued and pursued and pursued the right percentages of everyone until we got them. And this essentially matches your census data.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mormon.
Thank you. So I'm also curious, and given that we've switched survey modes a little bit, but how do we, what kind of trends are we seeing, or how do we compare from our previous surveys?
Again, there we have that data in the 180 slide deck presentation, and in the interest of time, we condense this down. I think largely the city is doing good on a positive trajectory. I also think that we have to recognize that over the last, let's call it 6 years, we've seen a little improvement in the last 2, but for the last 6 years, kind of a drop in trust in government, a drop in trust in all institutions, quite frankly. So, and we had this moment in time called COVID that, that intensification of COVID at that moment. And so I'll say this, if we go forward 10 years and we look back, we're all going to kind of wonder, what was that on the slide? And then we're going to remember. So those two things compound, I think really had a depressing factor on numbers in general. And that's just not in Arvada, it's everywhere. So to the degree that you had improvement over time, it's pretty impressive with those two major factors against us.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council? Mr. Marriott.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to make a comment after asking questions, and this is really directed at the city team, and I think you guys did a great job doing the survey, and it looks great, and I love the format that we got the data. It's real easy for us to look at and see, but to me, the takeaway I get from this survey is that the things that are important to our residents are those core city services. If you look in a variety of ways that these questions were asked and the results that came, people really value streets and roads, water, wastewater, parks and trails, which always scores the highest, police, and a safe community. It's the same things that it's always been, and I think these surveys are a really good opportunity to reflect on that and to reinforce our efforts in these areas, that we don't take these for granted. And I love seeing these results. I mean, this is a confirmation of kind of the issues that we work on here. But I think it's important, too, that we don't ever take these things for granted at the expense, or to do other things that don't fall as high on the survey. That when you take the average Arvada resident out there, what's really important to them are these basic functions of city government. And I think we're doing an excellent job on those, and I think it's especially important that we continue to do an excellent job on those.
Ms. Smith.
Yeah, just wanted to piggyback off of that. I think you forgot the housing and homelessness is 27%. So we don't want to forget about that one as a priority, because I think it really does outline what we're seeing and what we're hearing in the community. So thank you for backing that up with data.
All right, any other direction you need from council tonight on this feedback and workshop?
I think we're good. I just was checking with the team. We're just glad we got you this information prior to your retreat, because the values are prioritized in the information. And I also want to say thank you, because the work went really well. And if you remember last time, we had some issues getting the information reported in a way that we needed, and this has been a great partnership.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the report. Obviously, there's a lot of work behind all of that, and again, I appreciate the comments from my fellow council members, and look forward to digging in deeper. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next workshop item, which is the Lake Arbor Golf Course Master Planning and Course Improvements. Ms. Gillis?
Dr. Anessa Janes is going to introduce a topic, and we have several staff members here to assist.
Thank you.
Great.
Dr. Janes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. My name is Anessa Janes. I'm the director of the Vibrant Community and Neighborhoods Work System, and I'm here tonight with two of my team members, Mr. Joe Coonsey, who is our manager of golf course operations, and Steve Lyons, who is our golf course manager, and we're going to be discussing the Lake Arbor Golf Course tonight. Here's a list of our workshop objectives for the evening. We're going to spend some time talking through the history of the Lake Arbor Golf Course. We'll present some data related to both national and local industry trends related to golf. And then we'll focus in on kind of what's happening at the Lake Arbor Golf Course in terms of our players and our what we're seeing on the course since the pandemic started. We'll also be exploring current and emerging challenges at Lake Arbor Golf Course, as well as potential strategies for addressing those challenges, but also capturing opportunities that might exist. And then finally, we'll have time for discussion with you to answer your questions and receive policy direction about our proposed direction forward for 2023. So before I hand it over to Steve and Joe, I just wanted to ground us in the City Council strategic plan. So the text you see on this slide comes from our strategic plan. This is one of Vibrant Community and Neighborhoods' principles for the services that we provide to the community. This is one of many. But really it talks about how we provide our services and why we provide our golf services. So we really focus on providing exceptional service and value to our community, but also centering that with conservation of the natural environment and doing so in an economically sound and socially responsible way. So you will see these themes that come from the strategic plan carried throughout this presentation tonight. So I'm going to pass it over to Steve Lyons, and I'll be sitting right over here to answer questions as they come up throughout.
Thank you very much.
And this does work. Just forward, yep.
Thanks for the time tonight. I'm Steve Lyons, golf manager. We'll jump right in with kind of a snapshot of where golf is right now. This is data compiled by the National Golf Foundation. There's been a great increase in the number of participants nationwide, and that's really since the pandemic. So since 2019, a big surge in golf. Increasing interest from women in off-course golf experiences. So that would be Top Golf, anywhere where you're participating in golf with a club, a putting course, standalone driving range, but you're not actually playing a round of golf. Been a big increase in that, and we'll see some more data on that coming up. 1/3 of golfers now are millennials, so that's changing. They're bringing some new things to the game, music on the course, a need for a faster pace of play or a faster round, not the traditional 5.5-hour weekend round that golf is used to. Juniors, young adults making up 35% of new or on-course golfers, and technology is always creating longer shots, really through new technology, and the golf clubs, drivers, and the golf ball. Every year, players hit it a little farther. This graph illustrates the surge in golf in 2021 and 22, up about 17% nationally, and that surge is pretty sustained. And the golf prognosticators can predict that that is not going to rise at that percentage, but it will sustain where it's at now for the foreseeable future. This graph illustrates the increase, the uptick in off-course golf participation. So again, the Topgolf standalone driving range, there's a lot more interest in that, and the increase there is the light green on the chart. And that's really taken off in the last 5 years. At our courses, Lake Arbor and Westwoods, we've seen the surge in play since the pandemic. At Lake Arbor, up 10% roughly over the past 3 years, which is a little less than the national average. Westwoods, well above the national average. And we'll have a slide that kind of illustrates why that's happening, why Westwoods is up so much. Topgolf is something that's out there, and everyone's experiencing that. I don't think they're really a competitor, being the location, but what we find is so many people going to Topgolf and being introduced into golf, not necessarily coming out to be players and play rounds of golf, but they're getting an interest in golf. And we go to the golf in schools. We do a golf in schools program where we go to the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. And when we ask the question, how many kids here have played golf? A few of them. How many have gone to a driving range? Maybe a few more. How many have been to Topgolf? It's like almost everyone. So they've had a wide influence in introduction to golf. Both courses have seen increased sales on the driving range, which again would be a non-round experience with golf. And an interesting item from the survey relative to golf, that homeowners are more likely to rate the golf courses as good than renters. We haven't fleshed that out yet, but it's an interesting item coming out of the survey. This is a look at the rounds increase in the 3 years after the pandemic. Westwood's up over 30%, and that's been sustained and predicted to continue in 2023. And Lake Arbor up roughly 10% over those 3 years. We kind of look down at the rounds at Westwoods and kind of look into the 9-hole rounds, which is an area that is gaining in popularity. Beginners would prefer a 9-hole round. It's not as intimidating as 18, and millennials and new players that want a faster golf experience. Well, at Westwoods with 27 holes, we're able to create more 9-hole openings, and those rounds are up over 70%. With the driving range sales at Westwoods, again, it's a great facility for practice. There's a lot of room. It's one of the nicest driving range around, and again, it's that non-golf but golf experience that that we're seeing an uptick in, and sales on the range at Westwoods are up over 70% since 2019. This is a look at the player demographics at Lake Arbor, really just looking at all play versus senior play. Lake Arbor has a high percentage of senior play. Just senior green fees, around 17%. And there's a lot of annual pass players at Lake Arbor. These are players that will play from 30 to 150 times a year. So there's a lot of regular returning play at Lake Arbor. It's the same people coming back over and over. And of those annual pass holders, about 85% are in the senior category. So all of that blue is basically senior play at Lake Arbor, approaching about 50%. This is just a look at the practice facilities at each location. And the differences are really determined by just the type of facility. Lake Arbor's driving range is very small, not very many hitting areas, nowhere to do instructional programs without closing the driving range, whereas Westwoods has state-of-the-art driving range, really nice big tee, great putting green, just a great facility to come and practice. So they're able to do about $200,000 more in driving range sales than Lake Arbor is. And on Grow the Game programs, the same thing is true, that the facility at Westwoods makes it much easier and possible to do larger programs, more programs, fit more people out there. And Lake Arbor just really has no space. So most of the Grow the Game programs have migrated over to Westwoods.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. My name is Joe Quincy. I'm manager of golf course operations for the city of Arvada. I oversee the maintenance at Westwoods and Lake Arbor golf clubs. First slide I'll be presenting on here today. We'll be talking about a little bit of the history of Lake Arbor. Lake Arbor Golf Club was opened in 1973 by a private owner. The city took ownership over it in 1975. The majority of the homes built around Lake Arbor were after it was opened, mid to late 70s, early 80s for some of the single family residential homes. Lake Arbor Golf Club was purchased by the city using Jeffco open space funds. And it is an example of one of the first master planned golf communities in the state. Earlier in the 1970s, late 1970s, a trend began in golf architecture to start incorporating homes as part of a way to subsidize the construction of golf courses. This isn't the exact example of Lake Arbor, but this trend was moved on and made a little bit bigger as time went on. So what happened was you had architects that were starting to come up with standards for corridor widths and things like that. So that is kind of a brief history on how Lake Arbor came to be and how it exists or coexists with the residents around it. Lake Arbor Golf Club is also a cooperative Audubon environmental sanctuary through the Audubon organization. This means that we follow very strict guidelines on being environmentally friendly as far as fertilizer and pesticide use, establishing buffer zones around waterways, and increasing native areas, increasing wildlife habitat areas, all while having green space and being in an urban environment. A few of the course improvements that have been completed at Lake Arbor over the last 15 years or so is in 2008, a new irrigation system was finished. I'll get into that a little bit more on a later slide, but a great job was done using technology and making that system extremely efficient with the application of water. Netting and fencing has been added throughout the golf course. For example, the net on number 14 was added about 15 years ago on the right side. There's a net on 18, a net on number 4, and then other small fence projects that were along tee boxes. There's also been some new tees constructed. 14 and 17 specifically have basically brand new tee complexes. And some others are being evaluated as well for replacement. This next slide shows the 100-year floodplain and how it exists at Lake Arbor Golf Club. You'll see how the floodplain actually takes up the majority of the area where golf is played, where the driving range exists. This is a very common practice for land use in an urban setting where you're prohibited to build in these areas because of the floodplain, yet we're able to use these areas as green space and provide habitat and a recreational amenity for the city. If you look at other golf courses throughout the Denver metro area, you'll see this as a common theme. City Park just did a brand new renovation, and that was solely for stormwater retention and mitigation. Fox Hollow Homestead, they're right down below, I believe it's Bear Reservoir, and same thing, they're in a low-lying area that you can't build in, but it's great to incorporate that open space. The next slide is from the Jefferson County Open Space Reverter. This slide shows and explains what area and areas we need to use as open space or provide recreation to fill our obligation with Jeffco Open Space and fulfilling our agreement with taking over the golf course. The next few slides that you're going to see are to kind of reorient you with the walkthroughs that we did with you to give you a little bit of idea. So on the left here is number 2, on the right is number 7. And this is to give you an idea of how the homes were placed inside of the golf course after it was built and how things were developed. It also starts to give you an idea of corridor widths and comparison to best practices to the current date and how golf architecture is changing a little bit. The hole on the left, number 2, is a par 5. So that's one of the longer holes on the golf course. Requires longer shots, longer clubs such as drivers, 3-woods, being used to advance the ball down the fairway. This next slide shows a little bit different part of the golf course. It's the little triangle along 88th. So this picture would be basically from the top of the net on 88th Avenue, looking south. And on the left is number 5. Once again, par 5. A lot of drivers being hit off the tee. It's a longer hole, more difficult. But this slide, the main reason for this slide is to show that when Lake Arbor was built, it was built using 200 to 250 foot corridors as recommendations for each golf hole. This best standard practice currently is 450 or so feet for a width of a single golf hole. That is the width of the corridor that you see here in this slide. You're looking about 400 feet from the fence line on the left to that cart path all the way on the right. So if this was a brand new golf course being built in present day, they would have 1 hole in this space instead of 2. This slide is hole number 12 at Lake Arbor. That's 11 green, which is in the forefront. Number 12 is kind of in the back. You can see where the fairway curves to the right a little bit. This is an example of where you can see some fencing that's been put up along the tees on the right. And this is also a hole where we have been moving around and experimenting with different tee locations.
The golf courses live in Fund 43, which operates as an enterprise fund, which basically means that we have to generate enough revenue to cover all costs. And that's not just costs for any given year, but also kind of looking to the future of what projects will need to be done, what's on the replacement list. So planning ahead to have enough revenue for that. We try to offer reasonably priced options, particularly for junior golf. We have juniors play free and some other junior programs to give access to the course for juniors. We do have senior rates as well. And we also work very hard to provide equitable access to tee times. With the surge in golf, weekend tee times are are so popular, there's way more demand than we have space. So we tried to balance the access to all those tee times between tournaments, clubs, daily fee players.
Another benefit, I touched on it a little bit about the ecosystem services and how we can incorporate green space and wildlife habitat within an urban setting. I explained our stewardship to the environment by being able to be a member of the Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary, and some more about the irrigation system. I think it's a great benefit to the community and to our business model on how efficient we are with the use of water at Lake Arbor Golf Club. We have state-of-the-art technology that tells us exactly how much water to apply each and every day. We never irrigate when it is raining. We can put quantitative data basically in a mathematical equation and use that as a model for basing irrigation. If you saw in a few of the slides previously, you see a little bit of brown in those slides. I think that also a testament on how well we push things towards saving water, yet making Lake Arbor very playable, but not overwatering just because of color or aesthetics. We're doing it solely based on a model and with conservancy and efficiency as being number one in our mind.
If you'd step up just a little closer,
Sorry.
just in
Sure.
case the viewers at home.
The next few slides, we're going to start talking about some of the challenges that are current at Lake Arbor. One being an aging infrastructure. The picture on the left is the current state of the net on 88th. We will be working towards repairing that this year. There's many cart paths that are past their life expectancy. There's bunkers, tees, and greens. For example, renovation of bunkers recommended by the American Society of Golf Course Architects recommends that you replace at least the sand every 5 to 7 years, the drainage system every 15 years, and neither of those really have been done in 40 years or the life of the golf course. So there's many things that we have as a backlog, and one of the challenges being an enterprise fund where we have to fund these things ourselves. So moving forward, we're trying to form a plan on how we can get after some of these aging infrastructure priorities, and then the other one is that the maintenance building is the oldest operating building in the city right now, and that is also should be on the list for replacement.
Challenges that we try to address as we look to how we manage Lake Arbor moving into the future. 1/3 of golfers are now millennials. What's the experience that they're looking for? What will draw them in to the course? Number of golfers 65 and up has plateaued and kind of leveled off. Lake Arbor does have roughly 50% play in the senior category right now. Increasing interest in golf from women in the off-course category. How do we address that? How do we try to create an experience that will draw players that are not looking for a traditional round of golf? How do we get them out to the course? How do we address changes to the playing style and preferences, really of the new players coming into the game? How do we draw those out to Lake Arbor? And how do we create an environment that has, or a course that has the amenities for the off-course surge that we're seeing in golf? This slide just takes a look at the different demographics on course versus off course, And you can see that the off-course golf experience is drawing really a more diverse group of participants. This graph again illustrates the popularity in the recent years of off-course participation, off-course golf experience. Again, it's something we really would like to capture at both courses.
Can I ask you a question real quick? When they're quantifying, and I know these statistics probably come from a national organization, but the on-course versus off-course participation, are they quantifying everybody who goes to Topgolf as an off-course participation in golf?
Yes. Yeah, which would drive a lot of these statistics. I mean, it's such a popular phenomenon.
Right, but my experience has been, when I've gone to Topgolf, is the golf is why some people are there, and certainly it's golf themed, and there's golf there. But some of the people are there for the food and beverage and the party atmosphere. They're not really there for the golf. I mean, it could be hitting pucks on an ice rink into an ice net, and they would still be there because they're there for other reasons. Does the national organization try to shift through that data and come up with more, realistic, kind of a realistic cut on that data of how much of that is really golf participation and not just activity participation that happens to include golf this time?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I haven't seen any data that kind of addresses that question. I would say that we've tried to create some golf experiences at Westwoods that would bring players out that are not necessarily traditional golfers. An example would be a ladies' night, and we did that at Westwood. We could fit about 72 people, and we would sell it out every time. We mixed golf, and we had food and beverage right there, right on the driving range for them, and it was very popular. And what we found was we had players that would never become weekend 9-hole players or 18-hole players, but they loved coming out and hitting balls for that, and that would be their golf experience for the whole season. They would come out and participate in every one of those that we held, but they were really never going to become traditional type of players.
Right, and even those people, I mean, I would agree, those people are an off-course participant because they're there to play golf and have the social aspect and the other things. But Topgolf is so different. There's so many people that go through Topgolf, and Topgolf is so incredibly different because, for instance, lots of nonprofits hold fundraisers at Topgolf, and it's no different than if they held a fundraiser at an axe throwing place. I mean, people aren't really there for the axe throwing; they're there for the fundraiser. And I think sometimes including those numbers into off-course participation probably overstates some of the off-course participation, particularly if those numbers largely come from Topgolf, which is such a giant phenomena, especially nationwide. I know when I go, you see a variety of things, and it's all positive, and they certainly have a great model. But you can walk past the 4 decks of hitting bays and identify plenty of people who the golf doesn't have anything to do with why they're there, but yet they seem to be in these numbers.
Yeah, I would add this to one thing we noticed on the ladies' nights that we would do, that a lot of the groups would have one golfer in them, and that participant brought their friends out. So yeah, maybe they weren't coming out just for the golf, but they were coming out with their friends that did golf, and so they could all have fun, at the same location. And when Topgolf kind of first hit the scene, the PGA was very interested to try to get all these new players that were being introduced to golf. How do we get them to the course to become, green fee type of players? And it was very, very hard. So I think what's happening now is the courses are trying to put the amenities in that recreate that feel of Topgolf and get the players out that way.
Okay, thank you.
This is just another look at the demographics of growth in the game. And these are on-course participants.
Sorry, what's the percentage attached to these bars?
The percentage in each category? We have that in our notes. I don't know all that off the top of my head.
It's okay.
I got it here. I knew it was in our notes. Youth, 36%. Yeah, this is a look at the past 3 years. Youth, 36, black, 34%, Hispanic, 21, female, 15. That's as far as I go down. So challenges that we'd like to address as we consider how to move Lake Arbor forward and make it a enticing place for people to come out, you know, in the next 5, 10, 15 years. We'd like to really make it just a comfortable place for players to play and try to address some of those needs and issues that the new players are looking for, millennials, and really try to capture some of the off-course participation that we're seeing out there. Errant shots are always going to be a part of golf, and we will always try to make changes to try to help players hit the fairway.
Continuing with a few challenges, we also want to maintain that moving forward with Lake Arbor that you know, we are able to improve some of the maintenance. We're able to successfully finish some projects that involve the aging infrastructure. But we want to keep the golf course in such a state that it's, you know, it keeps those views. We don't want nets and fencing everywhere, which can be distracting to the player. It kind of takes away from that open space feel as you're out there. So how we can move forward and make changes that can address all of these challenges, whether it's from the current player, the new player, or residents living around the golf course.
These next few slides are just some visual images of some courses that are trying to incorporate some of the ideas that we've been talking about to address the new player out there, creating faster rounds and non-round experience.
This is an example of a short course that was built just outside of Houston. I believe it opened this year or last.
This shot shows a really kind of easy example of how you could create the off-course experience. So it's a 18-hole putting course, real grass putting course, right next to a food and beverage opportunity.
This is an example of a short par 3 course that was built in Greenville, South Carolina. Obviously, you can see the lights and you know, extending that time period of day. I mean, obviously, they're in a little bit warmer climate, so this is a little bit easier. But there are possibilities there where we can be, you know, thinking a little bit outside the box and making the actual days a little bit longer that we can hold players at the facility.
This is a look at an executive course, a shorter course, but one that was done, I mean, it's not an easy layout at all. It's a very difficult short type of golf course. So play faster because it's shorter, but it's still very difficult and challenging.
And you can still use some very impressive architecture. For example, you have an example of basically a slight punch bowl green there that you can see in the center. There's a lot of opportunity where, moving forward at Lake Arbor, we can modernize it a little bit with current architecture. We can make it fun, and we can make it original.
It's another picture of a course that did an 18-hole lighted putting course, and I think this one really captures that top golf feel with the colored lights. And again, it's located very close to a food and beverage facility.
All right, so you've heard from the team about some data and trends we're seeing both nationally and locally related to Lake Arbor. You've also heard from us about the challenges and the opportunities related to our changing customer base, our on-course and off-course needs. We've heard from the community members tonight. We're also hearing from golfers and customers who play the game. And so here is a list of planned improvements in 2023 actions that we're proposing to make this year in response to those challenges and opportunities that you've learned about tonight. So in the near term, we are now underway on a market and feasibility study. The scope of that study includes the bullet points here. So we're looking at the condition of the property, the management of our facilities as part of that study. We're doing a market area demand analysis as well, looking at our demographics, looking at our customers to see what type of operation Lake Arbor could potentially support 5, 10, 15 years down the road with strategic investments or changes. We're evaluating the future viability and profitability of some of these kind of out-of-the-box ideas related to a shorter, faster game, incorporating food and beverage into the experience, et cetera. And also we'll be developing conceptual designs and financial plans as part of that market and feasibility study. We're also planning to move forward with phase 1 of the Lake Arbor course improvement plan. So in this course improvement plan, the team evaluated all of the 18 holes at the Lake Arbor golf course and used a set of criteria, including kind of proximity to out of bounds, the frequency of misplaced tee shots, aesthetics, and cost effectiveness of various improvements to score all of the holes, to prioritize systematically which holes we can start making improvements on today. So phase 1 includes holes 2 and 7. The improvements associated with those holes include tree planting, forward tees, and netting. We're also moving forward with netting on hole number 4. We've included a one-time funding request for that project in this year's budget conversations. We'll be using around $80,000 of one-time funds to complete phase 1 of this work. Additional phases will require additional budget requests. So this is a visual of our 2023 project plan. You'll see the market and feasibility study there that we've started, the council workshop tonight, and then in the fourth quarter of 2023, we're planning to return to City Council and to the community with updates on the results of the market feasibility study, our progress on phase 1 of the course improvement plan, and then progress on our on-course education efforts as well. All right, so this is the last slide of our presentation, and we really wanted to have a dialogue with you and answer your questions about what you've heard and where we're headed. The takeaway here is that challenges and opportunities abound at Lake Arbor. We have multiple customers, both residents and players. We have changing demographics and needs in our community. And really, we're looking for strategies that can help us position Lake Arbor well to continue to provide service to our residents, valuable service to our residents as our community grows and changes over time. So again, our recommendation moving forward is to complete that feasibility study, complete phase 1 of the course improvement plan, continue our on-course education and engagement strategy with our players, and then to report back to you and to our community about our progress and our findings. And so what we really wanted to discuss tonight and hear from you is what level of support do we have on this recommended path forward? Are there things we're missing? Is there another direction you'd like to see us go? And we're all here available for your questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much. There are a couple of questions for sure, I'm sure, from all of us, but we'll start with Mr. Mormon. Or I'm sorry, Mr. Marriott was first. Sorry, Mr. Mormon.
Thank you. Actually, I have a question. I have one question before I make a comment. The question I have probably to the golf team is, one of the things that's comments that have been made and was on one of the slides was that the newer people who are playing golf are looking for a shorter golf experience or quicker golf experience, maybe not the traditional 18 holes. Have we ever thought about even experimenting with it at times, operating Lake Arbor as 2 separate 9 holes? In other words, you don't ever sell anybody an 18 hole, you sell them a 9 hole. And when they're done, they can buy another 9 hole and play 9 hole again, but you can operate then 2 9 holes in parallel. So instead of operating 1 golf course, you're just going to operate 2 golf courses so that people have more of an option at that shorter golf experience. Because, that's kind of the problem sometimes, unless you're lucky like Westwoods is, where you've got 3 9s, is on a busy time, if you want a shorter golf experience, it's kind of not available because it's an 18-hole setup, and you either got to be the first ones out early in the morning and can go off on the back while people are starting on the front, or you go at the end of the day when you're not going to have enough time to finish and you can get out and play that 9 holes. But has anybody ever experimented with that? Maybe not us, but within the industry?
At Lake Arbor, during the week, you could play 9 or 18 on any given tee time. So the weekends reserved for 18 holes. That's what most players want, and we can fill those up. There would be some 9-hole times early in the morning, like you mentioned before. The 18-hole rounds are on the backside. But Lake Arbor does allow 9-hole tee times to be made during the week, so that option is there. And I would say, just add this too, at Westwoods, where we can open up more 9-hole play in the afternoons. Those are just as popular and go just as fast now as weekend 18-hole times have traditionally gone for.
Right. Okay. One other quick question for the team here while I've got you here, and that's how close to capacity, how close to selling out is both Westwood and Lake Arbor? It would seem to me that Westwood's probably pretty close a lot of the time. Is Lake Arbor close, or what type of capacity does it work on?
Lake Arbor is on the weekends, but not through the week on consistent basis. Mm-hmm. Westwoods has, post-pandemic, just about all the time. Yeah. Weekdays and weekends. I mean, there's huge demand for weekends. I mean, they're gone very fast. I mean, you could sell those over 3 or 4 times.
Right. And if you were going to put a number on the weekday capacity, would it be 50% or 70% or 40, 90%? What would, if you were putting just an average number on it? I realize it varies greatly depending on the time of the year and the weather and all kinds of things, but
just to kind of take an average of capacity for open times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just what capacity is it running at? Like obviously there's a maximum number of rounds that can be played in a day. Right. On a weekday at Lake Arbor, are they playing 50% of the rounds that could be played? Are they playing 70% or 20% or, and again, I realize it varies dramatically depending on the time of the year and the weather that particular day.
Yeah, you have cold in the spring and fall.
But just
kind
of an average number about, is the facility underutilized, is it overutilized, is it about right? How's it operating?
To put kind of an average on that at Lake Arbor, I'd say probably about 70%.
Okay.
Westwood's 90.
Okay.
Right now.
And compared to other golf courses kind of in our area or similar market area, like, whether it's Indian Tree or Fox Hollow or Coal Creek in Boulder County or places like that, do we compare similarly, do you think, or are we more utilized or less utilized than other courses in our trade area?
The easiest way to answer that would be there's a report produced by Golf Data Tech that takes the metro average and it's been a little tricky over the past couple of years because they didn't track data through the pandemic because it was so chaotic. But typically, Westwoods has month over or year over year on a monthly comparison has outperformed the metro area. Lake Arbor has underperformed it a little bit.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so thank you for answering the questions. I want to just make a comment. I wholeheartedly support the recommendation. I think you're going about this in a very thoughtful, deliberate way. I think completing a feasibility study and some kind of course improvements as we go is I think the right thing to do. I think these assets like Lake Arbor Golf Course are really treasured assets by lots of members of the community, and for lots of different reasons. Some because they can get out and play golf, but others because of the open space or because of the view corridors it provides to their residential units, or any number of different questions. Some the environmental advantages that it provides to have wetlands and grass and trees and all those different things. So I think there's a lot of stakeholders here that are really have interest in how it goes. So I think a deliberate process that goes at this in a regular, kind of a thorough, deliberate process is the right thing. And I think what you're doing is doing that. When I think about, if there were to be, think about making dramatic changes to Lake Arbor Golf Course, I think about, the cost to do that, to take the ground and go to a clean sheet of paper, and we're just going to start over and we're going to build something totally different than exists there now. Seems like a really daunting task, and given the many priorities that the city has, it seems like that would be a difficult ask to do something like that. So I think as you go through this process of this feasibility study, looking at easy things that can be done, modifications that can be done, things that can be done along the way as it continues to operate, and provide those valued things for all the different constituencies who like Lake Arbor Golf Course. I think that's important. So anyway, I completely endorse the pathway you're on and the plan that you're executing.
Thank you. Mr. Mormon.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Also, I'll appreciate the work on this. I know it's not an easy task. And so I've got, I guess, a couple questions along that lines. First of all, you talk about phase one. Can you remind me the other phases after phase one? Are they the next year? And, we heard a lot about Hole 5 tonight. Where does that fall in the planning?
So, was this available to council?
Yes.
Okay. So you've all seen, this is how we have graded each hole. We have a weighted score. Hole 5 lies as the 6th highest priority on our list currently. Using data from, how often the target area is missed, and, all those aesthetics, proximity to out of bounds, things like that were all used to rate the holes. When we showed on the tour, and we kind of went through explaining why holes 2 and 7 were at the top, and then as we keep moving forward, we will keep addressing them in order.
And I can add to that. So in terms of the phases of this plan, with our current funding level, with that $80,000, we anticipate being able to chip away at 2 of these holes each year. Of course, that will vary depending on what the solution for the particular hole will be, because not all of the solutions are the same. So for example, hole number 2, we're looking at trees. Hole number 7, we're looking at trees, netting, tee adjustments. And so the cost between a specific hole will vary, but we're averaging about 2 holes a year. So hole number 5 would be, 2 years from now, potentially on that time frame, assuming that future budget requests are approved to continue with the phases.
Thank you. And so with the feasibility study that's part of phase 1, is there an opportunity there to look at how we increase our fees to maybe get at chipping at this away faster, the problems? And you talked, I think I understood like weekends are higher demand. So would we charge more on the weekends for the higher demand times? Is there a potential for that?
Absolutely. So again, being an enterprise fund, we have a lot of flexibility to work with the city manager's office to set those fees based on what our goals are. And so part of the purpose of tonight was to have this policy discussion that if we're hearing from council that we'd like to to push a little bit and make some of these business decisions about our fees and our pricing while balancing the desire to maintain equity and access, we can explore that, and we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I think I would like to see in the feasibility study looking at those options more of how we might, accumulate more funding to move this along faster.
Okay.
And what that might look like. Let's see. I guess I'll just get to maybe my final question around hole 5. And Dr. Janes, you and I have talked about this, and so I'm just curious on your thoughts. But outside of the enterprise fund, is there a way for us, before hole 5 comes up in that phasing, to look at some more temporary solutions that aren't as expensive? So we talked on the tour about use of trees. Is there a way that we could use other funding in the city for tree planting to plant some trees here to help kind of divert some of where the balls are going for now?
Yeah, we're open to exploring all options to help us kind of make these improvements on the course improvement plan. Yeah.
So I would like to see that explored and see if there's if we can, we're not going to change hole 5 now. Obviously, that's going to be an expensive endeavor. But if there's something that we can do now that's less expensive before it comes up in the phasing to help address some of the concerns.
Sure. And I can work with my team to determine kind of what the trade-offs will be in diverting kind of funds that are existing for our tree canopy work and our forestry team, or
right. Yes. So I would like to see that.
Report back on that.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
So, have we thought about, I have a couple things. One, maybe if there's sort of play, if we look at doing like a baker's dozen or half dozen, kind of plays, 6, 6, 6, or a 12 or 13, on the days where you're not getting the play because it's a work day, just to experiment with the data. Like, what is the data telling us while we anticipate change? I think it would be good for us to trial the idea and see what it does, and then report back as you go through your feasibility study, because that might inform us on our next steps, right? Like, is there an appetite for it? Maybe, maybe not. I think you can play off the whole baker's dozen or half dozen, do it on weekdays or whatever. But have you thought of something like that to be a little creative and unique and market that idea?
Yes, we could try. We could try that. I'm thinking it through. The
system probably won't let you do it.
It's not built for loops like that, so there would be waste, right? Because we don't have a single loop that comes back anywhere. But we could probably configure a way to test it out. It'd be a little bit of a revenue lost on those days because we would have to build these gaps, to facilitate getting people around in these kind of makeshift loops. But it would be interesting data to collect, though. So
it's almost, other than the system, I'm sure there's a system constraint here, but it'd just be interesting to see, did it work or not work, and without spending really major dollars, right? Because I think there could be something there. So I would suggest trying it if you can. If it's too much of a lift, then it is what it is. As far as immediate, I mentioned this on our tour, Arvada does the whole trees across Arvada, and I honestly think since we have constraints with funding and competing priorities, and some of these trees, maybe we should see if the public would be interested in contributing to a canopy program that we can plant trees faster than our budget would allow us if they're willing to donate trees, or not donate, but maybe contribute to a tree. Because I'm thinking, like, I understand where you're coming from, Randy, but I think the issue I'll have is those trees are not going to mature for 5, 10, 15 years before they even make any dent in any of the concerns that have been brought up tonight. So, and you can't really do the trees across Arvada because they're like tiny sticks and they're really like, they won't do anything. So, yeah, so, getting the 12-foot, 15-foot, whatever trees, those are pricey, the old trees. But, maybe you look to the communities if they are interested in, contributing to the program to expedite tree planting on the course. And obviously we want to put trees where they will be there in any future configuration. We don't want to just plant trees and then have to turn around and cut them down. So, maybe if there's some planning around that, that might be something we can open up to the public to help out with. Just a thought. We don't, otherwise the funding's the funding. I just don't, the only thing, Randy, I want to stick with the rated score because those are the most safety critical in the whole course. And so I'd rather ask them to knock out number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 through your list as you get through them. The issue is funding, and then we have competing priorities. So that's going to be the struggle. I was telling the team here, I stopped playing there. It's just uncomfortable. It's just an uncomfortable course. And when it's uncomfortable, you don't have the revenues, and now you can't get the fixes. So one of the complaints I have, and they heard it all through the whole thing, was I just feel like we're in a jail with fences everywhere. Fence, 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 fence. That's not what a golf experience is. Or should residents live in a community that has 30, 40-foot fences all around them either? That's not good for the residents either. So we just need to figure out how to create this Colorado feel to this course outdoors, and use trees and what we can, and techniques and best practices to create a safe environment. And hopefully through the recommendations you've given through your study, we'll find the other end of this tunnel. But in the meantime, maybe there's some immediate things that we can do that costs minimal dollars, if any. So I would just encourage you to go forward with your recommendations and see if there's a tree donation type program that people might be interested in contributing to. Obviously, we need to pick the tree because it needs to do certain things, but maybe there's an opportunity there. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I'd love to piggyback off your point. I think I discussed with Steve, my cart partner, when we did the tour, what a tree matching program. So if the city was to, set aside $50,000, if residents were to contribute as well, and we could match whatever they fundraise, and that could be an idea, and almost make it like competitive for each whole, I don't know. But I do like that idea. So it's not just the city contributing these funds, because we are limited in what we can. I'd love for us to put more funding for trees and security and safety, but there's so many competing priorities. So I struggle with seeing how we could fund that. One of the things I'm wondering, it was mentioned about how when you're on the course and you hit the ball and it's coming near a person, you say 4. But then off the course, there's no thing to yell. Is that right?
Get out of the way.
Get out of the way, yeah. But is there any etiquette in which it's going to these neighbors' yards, you yell heads up?
You would always yell 4 when there are people that you know about in the proximity of where your shot's going, where you think it's going.
Okay.
So it's not different for a golfer on the course versus
not
somebody in their backyard, right? Your responsibility as a golfer is still to yell 4.
Okay. And so because we're bringing in new people that might not be skilled in this, I'm wondering where there's room for education on that. So could we put signs? What are we doing to educate that?
Yes, so that's the on-course education piece. So we're going to be working with our communications manager to develop a strategy with goals in mind, right? We want to increase, we want to decrease errant balls and increase kind of traditional etiquette on the course, respectful play. And so that could be we've seen other courses do kind of a wide variety of things. And so we're looking to set the goals and then fit the strategies in to get us to those goals. So signage, both on course, but also, social media, in our clubhouses, et cetera.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. The other question I had was, since it could be years out, if not more years, to fix some of the lower priority holes, the hole number 5 that, I forgot the other hole that's parallel to it, 4? 3?
Oh, 3.
3 and 5? Yeah. I'm wondering if there is reason to stop one of those holes and make it just one big hole, or one big course. I don't know the right terminology for golf, sorry. But while there are like safety concerns, we can't address it right away. Could we make that one while we're waiting to bring it back to better standards?
That would be pretty tricky. The existing players out there would not like it at all. To take away to reduce the number of holes, you have to charge a screen fee, so I think it would hurt revenue that way. And it's, I've seen it happens in golf when there's construction on a hole, but that's always a temporary situation. And you can kind of get around it. You can make temporary tees and temporary greens to get around a construction issue. To permanently close a hole, I haven't seen that. Okay. I think it'd be pretty tough. It'd be a hard thing to communicate to the players that are out there now.
I see. Okay. To Councilmember Pfeiffer's point about we don't want to have everyone fenced in, but if there were neighbors that wanted to have fencing there, are there rules against allowing them to put their own fences up?
On their own property, or?
Yes.
They would be subject to city code and, regular rules about fencing. And,
But no other.
And we can explore some of those details for you and get back to you about the details of that.
Okay, last question. So when you do this feasibility study and, the council says there's too many competing priorities for funding, we can't give you any extra funding.
Yep.
Is there in the feasibility study an option of we can't fund any of this? What do you do next?
Yeah, so we're anticipating that when we finish the feasibility study, that will be the situation. We're not expecting kind of funding soon, but what we would like to do is use the results of the feasibility study and the recommendations to do some of this piloting, experimentation before we make any investment to test some of the findings and assumptions. Within the feasibility study, we're also hoping to get recommendations for potential funding streams and ways that we can structure the existing business to get to the outcome that we'd like to. At this point, we don't know what's the right solution for our community, how much it'll cost, will it really work, will our customers and homeowners like it, right? So we need to take this first step before we get there. Okay. Does that answer your question?
It does. Okay. And I also support the, was it you that talked about raising premium rates for tee times?
Yes, Steve's team does a lot of work studying kind of capacity, timing of the tee times that we're selling to adjust our fees every year. And so he really is an expert in that area and will continue to do that work, hearing your feedback. So, okay.
Mr. Pfeiffer, did you have another?
Yeah, I was just curious during this feasibility, I was thinking about this. I'm assuming there's technology out there that you can place behind a tee box to see where these balls are going and just get like data. Like you can watch, a month or a week or 2 weeks of just what's happening at the tee box and where are these balls going and something that tracks where, the percentage versus somebody out there, marking it. It seems like you should be able to just put a camera back there and just track where people are going. The only reason why is I think it could inform maybe different decisions that might be more data-driven than a human, tracking it. I was just curious, will that be part of any of the studies at all to kind of just see what's happening at certain plays on certain? It'd just be interesting. It just seems like you would have something that can do that. If not, oh well. I mean, at the end of the
It's
day.
not within the current scope, I can tell you that, to put additional technology out there. That doesn't mean we cannot do it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be on every hole, just on your problem holes.
Exactly,
Right?
yep.
Just to see what it's doing. What are people doing at this hole? And like
Yeah.
you said, you made small adjustments. You move a tee box a little bit. You added this little
Right.
tree out here that kind of throws people a little bit. You made it look narrow here. Those tweaks, you know, it would be interesting if there was some sort of data that showed that you can actually see the balls actually start moving as you made those minor adjustments, because maybe some minor adjustments that cost very little money make a huge impact. And you're the experts, not us, but maybe it's this whole world of AI and stuff now, that maybe there's something there that can help us a little bit more on some of our problem boxes.
Yeah, we can work smarter, not
Yeah,
harder.
yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. And we'll keep that in mind. You know, we know that there are challenges with the course, and we know where they are. For this feasibility study, we're taking kind of a macro approach, looking down from the top at how we can address as many of the challenges that we're facing as possible, while also positioning us well to continue to provide service as our community changes. We also need more data. So I think that there's a balance and definitely room for leveraging technology to do that. I don't know what it looks like yet. But
Yeah,
we can.
it's just the gut and replace, and if we don't have it, you know, maybe there's a different approach.
Yep. Yeah.
And then the fees, the only thing I would say with fees, just knowing that, you know, longtime family goes out there for a long time, raising the fees, well, because Lake Arbor is not like Westwoods. It's not like the Broadlands. It's not like, you know, Perry Park. You're not going to get the fees. We have to be a little bit clear about, you know, we have browning in the green, you know, because we're conserving on the water. People are just, you'll get to a point where that supply and demand with the fees. I hear what my peers are doing, but I also know that you raise $1, you'll lose 20% of your play all of a sudden. Now your $1 increase is actually a negative. Right. And so it's a very delicate dance, and I understand that, and I've heard those golfers speak about that, like, hey, we're paying for what we get, in a way. So and now if we're doing a lot of investment, we're seeing these improvements and adding these trees, and the fairways are a lot greener, okay, that's a different story now, because now those golfers do want to pay for that experience, and I understand that. So I just want to express, you all know what to do, but everything I just said comes with cost to make that revenue, and I understand that, and you just have to strike that balance to see where it goes. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the time that the team has taken to kind of dive into this. I know this is something that's been probably on the radar for quite some time, and you've been taking steps along the way, but now it feels like it's a little bit more serious and with opportunity to go forward. Appreciate the comments from the community, those who live there, and the feedback that you provided tonight in public comment. Just a couple of questions. The feasibility study, will we get information in that says that if we were to transition this to two 6-part courses, that this is the type of activity that we would expect based on information that's come from somewhere else? We obviously aren't going to have that real-time data that somebody suggested that, well, let's just change it up, change a hole here and there. Are we going to get that kind of data in the feasibility study?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll give us some real good grounding spots to say, if in fact we transition to that type of a style of course and mode of play, then here's what the cost would be to make that investment, and here's what our payback, our return on that investment is going to be in X number of years or rounds of golf. That's what we're going to get from this feasibility study. Okay. So yeah, I would agree that, you know, the market's going to demand kind of the fees, and I think that you have an adverse, you know, it's the unintended consequences of raising the fees will be that we're going to lose rounds of golf, which doesn't help fund any future phases. Because right now, if we're funding those phases based on rounds of play, then that's going to be a challenge. I wholeheartedly support the approach that you're going with now with the feasibility study and with the addressing those two holes, along with, I think, as Councilmember Smith indicated, that public education piece. Because they don't, I mean, if there are new golfers, they may not know that 4 is the appropriate call out for get out of the way. So I think that, whatever type of wayfinding, signs we can put up to help the golfers along the way. This is a heavy, heavy lift. And I think, it would be awesome to be able to imagine this kind of redesigned course with these, on and off course revenue generating segments, but that's probably 10 years away. And so what I would encourage you to do is to continue to look at this from a phased approach. If we had $100,000 a year, what would we do with that? And what's going to be the most impactful? And I think Mr. Pfeiffer said, obviously I think this goes without saying that anything we do in any spend isn't ever compromised, with anything else that we might do in years to come. So if it's trees, those trees are permanent. They're not going to move. And so there's a lot of forward thinking. So again, I think you're going the absolute right direction, and I support the fact that you've got some great ideas around phase 1. Obviously, I think we all wish that there was more money to do more in phase 1, but I'm assuming that rubric that you created, just playing off of Councilmember Smith, but to identify the criteria of 1 to whatever, I think you have to follow that, and you have to stay true to that. So anyway, that's my feedback and input. Anything else you need from us tonight?
No, thank you for your time and for your feedback. We really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much. Ms. Gillis, anything from you on this? Do you feel like you've got enough to help guide the team?
Absolutely, and having the confirmation of where we're headed is really important. Like you said, it is a heavy lift, and whatever decisions are made will also be a heavy lift. And I do, as we talk about what we can do for different holes, and talking about hole number 5, they did go through a thoughtful process to determine the prioritization. So moving anything around deviates from that prioritization. So I just want to keep us on path, because those decisions, any trees that we move from where they might otherwise go, there is a comprehensive tree plan in the city that our forester is implementing, and we have the emerald ash borer and other issues related to trees, so there is already a plan for that tree replacement. So there is a much broader system that we're looking at when we make those decisions. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness, your discussion to consider all of those things. And then as far as the experimental play and the impacts on revenues, we do want to be really thoughtful, because we're getting by with where we're at. And if we do anything to reduce revenues, it reshifts that plan as well. So I absolutely trust the thinking, the work that's going into that, and the opportunity to come back with what we're learning as we move along.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much again for the information tonight. So now we're going to switch back into business meeting mode to the final public comment portion. Is there anyone in council chambers that would like to speak during this public comment portion? Seeing none, I'll close that public comment portion and ask any council member for any reports. No reports? Great. So with that, Ms. Morris, anything from you tonight?
No, Your Honor, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Gillis, anything?
We have a holiday next Monday. Just wanted to remind everybody.
We'll take the Monday off. So thank you very much. We appreciate everybody being here tonight. And with that, we are adjourned.